Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. I had a request earlier to do a video on dysautonomia, so that's going to be the topic for today. Dysautonomia is a condition that affects the autonomic nervous system. Pretty much your autonomic nervous system isn't working well, and your autonomic nervous system controls almost everything that you don't have to physically think about to be done in your body. Digestion, temperature control, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your eyes dilating, things like that. Nobody can figure out a cause of dysautonomia. Dysautonomia could be a primary diagnosis or a secondary diagnosis to something like mast cell disease, mitochondrial disease, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, diabetes, things like that can cause dysautonomia. But again, it's one of those illnesses that there's no cure for, because it can come from all sides of the board pretty much. Few symptoms of dysautonomia include extreme fatigue, extreme thirst, cravings for salt, heat intolerance, which is something that I have pretty much. If it gets too hot, I start sweating, I get really sick, my blood pressure will drop, I can faint, I will start throwing up. It's not a good picture all around. Temperature control, your body is unable to deal with the temperature changes, hot and cold. You might not be able to heat back up after being outside, so you're cold longer, or you might not be able to cool your body down, things like that. You could have tachycardia, which is too fast of a heart rate. When you're resting, your heart rate should be in the 60s or 70s, and your heart rate is up there at 120 like you're running for no reason. Sometimes you can feel it, sometimes you can't. It just depends on the person. Bradycardia is a complete opposite. Your heart rate drops down to the 20s and 30s, and that's a very scary feeling because, that's closer to, your heart rate stopping. And I myself have never experienced bradycardia to know what it's like, but I've heard from some people it makes you feel horrible. No energy, the inability to get up and do anything just because your heart rate is so slow. It's not providing the oxygen that you need, the blood that certain organs need, things like that. Another symptom is orthostatic hypotension, meaning your blood pressure gets too low with postural changes. That is actually one form of POTS, or called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Sorry. And what it is if you go from a laying position to a sitting position and you take your heart rate and you take your blood pressure, your heart rate goes up a certain amount, your blood pressure comes down a certain amount. Then again, they'll have you go from sitting to standing, and your heart rate increases it more, and your blood pressure decreases more. If your blood pressure gets too low, you will faint. Some people have pre-syncope, where, they start to get that darkness feeling, like, things start to feel like they're blacking out, the room starts to spin a little bit, and they can tell that they're about to pass out, so they can sit down. That's not always the case with POTS, because sometimes it just drops so drastically, you're gone. Some people that I know personally have gotten aid dogs because their POTS is so bad. The dog is trained to sense when this person's blood pressure is starting to drop and it gets too dangerous, and they'll alert the owner and have him sit down and they won't allow them to get back up until the dog senses it's safe. It's really great that that's available, because people who have severe POTS, it's life-altering. They can't go out, they can't be alone, they can't do anything. So it really is not fun. There's all other sorts of symptoms of dysautonomia. Eye dilation is one of them. Sweating is one of them. Pretty much anything in your body that you don't have to think about is part of the autonomic nervous system. And like I said, dysautonomia can be something that is a primary diagnosis or secondary to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mast cell disease, mitochondrial disease, things like that. So since it could be a primary diagnosis or a secondary diagnosis, they still have not found a way to control everything. One of the things that they have found that helps is they've looked more into patients who have POTS, and they have noticed that, if you increase your fluids, increase your salt intake, then your blood pressure is going to stay up a little more, because the salt intake retains water, and the fluids help increase your blood flow. And another step that you can take is wearing compression stockings, and that way that'll help increase your blood pressure. For a lot of people, those help. Now, for someone like me who has gastroparesis or an oral intake problem, that's hard. Even for a normal person who just has POTS, they can't always get enough fluids as they need. So what ends up happening is, whether it's outpatient or at home, they start doing saline infusions. This is a dextrose potassium mix of saline water, pretty much. Saline water, as we all know, is salt water. On top of that, they've added sugar because I have blood sugar problems, and potassium because my potassium drops low without it. I'm lucky enough, because I do have a port, I'm able to do this in the comfort of my own home whenever I want to. Not everybody is able to do that. A lot of people have to go into an infusion center and sit there for a good 4 or 5 hours and have this, have a bag of saline or maybe 2 put into them. I say 4 or 5 hours because if you run this bag too quickly, it's going to go straight through you, and you're just pretty much going to pee it all out, and it's not really going to help you. And some people have said that it even makes them feel worse. So, running the amount of time that you have to do for the saline is different for everybody. But for most people, it's at least 4 hours that they intake this as. Another good way to stay hydrated, I always have Gatorade around. Pure water, of course, is a good way. Unfortunately, with my gastroparesis, water does make me sick. So I drink, as much Gatorade as I can. Propel, vitamin water, things like that. And always having like a salty snack will help with that too. Dysautonomia is just another one of those diseases that you kind of look at it all and go, it makes absolutely no sense. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I don't see that ever changing. It's just, there's so many ways that will cause dysautonomia. There's so many symptoms for dysautonomia. It's really confusing, but they do hold an annual convention for dysautonomia. The best website that I've used, and this is the organization that I send the money that I raise for my fundraiser to, is DysautonomiaInternational.org. They have tons of information. They'll tell you when the convention is. They give you salty snacks and meals, like quick examples. Like I have their webpage up right now. Quick salty snacks idea: salted watermelon wedges, salted avocado wedges with nacho and salsa, cottage cheese with salt sprinkled on top, apple wedges spread with peanut butter, mix in extra salt into the peanut butter, scrambled eggs with salt. I guess you're seeing a pattern here. Everything is with salt. Beverages. Bouillon cubes are loaded with salt. I mean, I would say they're almost completely salt, because you don't even have to season them once you use them. But bouillon cubes to make soup out of or broth out of, those are great for helping to keep your body hydrated and with salt. Tomato juice with salt, with a lot of salt. Pickle juice. I know that sounds weird, but you know, pickle juice is nothing but salt in there. And it doesn't taste bad. I miss pickles. I can't eat them anymore, but you know, pickle juice is an option. Virgin lime margaritas, mashed potatoes or baked potatoes with lots of salt, soups, sauces, cheese, and they give you, some, they give you some recipes on here, and it's really helpful. So Dysautonomia International is the website that I usually go to for any questions or concerns. That's where I donate the money from my fundraiser. They do hold an annual convention. Last year it was in Washington, and it was the week after my fundraiser, so I have to say the first week. It was the weekend right after the 4th of July. So, dysautonomia is a tricky one, but for the most part, if you can learn to regulate the symptoms that you have, whether it's POTS, heat intolerance, sweating problems, things like that, then it's a little more manageable than some of the other chronic illnesses. Obviously, it's not fun to have your blood pressure drop and faint. So if you have POTS itself, you want to keep an eye out. Listen to your body. You can usually tell when your blood pressure is starting to plummet. You're not going to feel good. Sit down really quickly. There's so many instances of people just sitting in the middle of the floor of Target, Don't judge people. Maybe they may have POTS. Something may be wrong, For temperature control problems, they make cooling vests for those who overheat. I haven't tried one. We're pretty good about keeping my room nice and cool so that I don't have an issue with that. When I go out, it's a little bit harder, but the car is air conditioned. I don't really go any place where I'm out for a long period of time, like outside of a building, just because if I overheat, I do get really sick. For some other people, they don't sweat at all, and they have to figure out a way to manage that. For some other people, like me, they sweat like there's no tomorrow. I've had instances where I wake up in the middle of the night and I have to change my clothes because I've been sweating so bad. Everybody is just different with their dysautonomia. No two dysautonomia patients are alike. It's something, again, that research is still working on, and I could go on forever telling you about it, but it's not fun, but it's manageable. And that's one of the most important things when you have a chronic illness. You know, as long as you can manage it some way or another, whether it's by your diet intake, buying a cooling vest, getting an aid dog, you can still live your life. And that's one of the best things about having a chronic illness that you can manage, is you are able to get out there and still live your life. You're not stuck at home all the time. Are you going to feel crappy sometimes? Yes. You know, if you go out for a night and you have a really great night and you have a lot of fun, next few days you're probably going to be completely worn out. You need to rest. You know, increase the intake of your salt, increase the intake of your fluids, make sure you're taking care of your body, but at least you got that night out, you know, and then after a few days, you'll be okay, and you can do what you want to do again. You know, it's just depends on how many spoons you have for that day. That's something I haven't covered, and that may be my next video. Actually, no, my next video is going to be more of an introduction to the life of a tubie. You know, things that people who are going down the road of getting a feeding tube should know to make it easier for them. And then the spoon theory will probably be the video after that. But I will make a video for tomorrow, and I will see you guys then. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. If you have any other ideas for topics, please let me know. I will do the best I can to answer them. And I hope everyone is having a great day. Thank you.